Hey guys, how's everyone doing? So we are back again. It is episode 8 of the Killer Comic Show. Now this time, tonight you're in for a right treat because we are going to go all the way back. We're going to go retro. It's a retro episode, and I thought no way is there anyone better to share this moment with than the one and only Hydra Collectables. So without further ado, let's just bring him straight on. How you doing, Luke?
Hey buddy, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, man. I'm very much looking forward to this. It's
Yeah,
about
me
time
too.
I had you on the show. I've been trying. You're a man in demand.
I don't know about that.
You really are. You're a man in demand. So I thought, well, I need to get you on the show. We finally made it happen, and thanks for coming on.
No, thanks for having me, and thanks for being patient with my schedule and allowing this to, happen. It's great to be here.
Oh mate, it was always inevitable. I think the UK comic scene at the moment, like we've got a great bunch of people, and I think the way that we always talk and communicate, it's all kicking off at the right time. So it's great to have you on. I know you're a very busy man. I know you've got a schedule probably backing you up for the next 2 years. So
Yeah.
we'll make this hour enjoyable for everyone in the chat. Massive shout out to Rod the Rican, who is currently joining us from across the pond. Thanks for joining us, Rod. It's great to have you here, mate. I know it's probably like 11 o'clock in the morning now. You're currently at home. He was able to take it off, but he says, "Sorry, man, I've been very busy." Rod, no worries, mate. You're here now, so sit back, enjoy, have a beer, and just listen to us two Englishmen talk about comics. So, Luke, without further ado, you, like me, are emphatic about comics. You love your comics, but you're on the flip side of the coin. Where I'm more of a modern age comic reader, you are your bronze and your silver age. So, how did this all start for you? How did you become Hydra Collectibles, and how did you get into the comic scene?
So comics have always been like a huge part of my life. As a young kid, it was around, I want to say 1994, which would have put me at about 8 or 9 years old. And yeah, I was really into going to Blockbuster with my parents and hiring videos on the
Yeah.
weekend. And they had this whole giveaway thing where they were giving away the Marvel Flair '94 trading cards.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my first entry, as it were, into superheroes. Then I decided that I wanted more of these cards, and so I seeked out the comic book store. And yeah, it kind of just went from there. I went from buying cards to buying comics, doing a little bit of hustling when I was a kid
Yeah.
at school. And yeah, my collection just kind of grew. And then, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I kind of fell out of love with comics as the years went on and then came back again. And that same thing kind of happened multiple times throughout the years. This time, however, I think I'm here to stay, and the room here really does show that.
It does indeed. Like it's been, as I mentioned to you, it's been great watching you grow. I think because obviously I spoke to Comico Dino, who's joining us in the chat. We've got Tom in there and the likes of Ben, and I think we're really building like a really tight knit community. And I think it's just we're all going in different directions, but I think our end goal is comics at the end of the day. We all love it. We're all geeks, all nerds, and it used to be a bit of a faux pas where you'd kind of hide behind not wanting to share your love for comics and stuff like that. But it's about being who you are. It's great to be who you are. And I think we've mentioned on numerous occasions, we're doing it because we just love what we do and we love talking about comics. And this is the Killer Comic Show. So I think I'm just going to get straight to it. What is your Killer Comic Show? What was your killer comic when you were growing up? And what is it
So
now?
the big time favorite of mine, I love the lizard from Spider-Man, and I've said it repeatedly on my channel. I'm sure loads of people are sick of it. But I love the Jekyll and Hyde persona that the character brings. And that's probably the oldest comic that I own. And I don't mean in terms of age, because I have older Golden Age books. What I mean is that I've owned that book the longest. And I was very fortunate to actually find it still in my parents' loft. It was absolutely battered, covered in like sticky tape residue and all that lot, which happened to be there long before I even purchased it. And yeah, I sent it off to CGC, and it's come back a 1.8, which I'm still very happy with, because
That's wicked.
it's a book that means something to me. There is massive sentimental value there. I am, however, always on the lookout for a higher grade copy of said book. But even if I had that higher grade copy, this is my one. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is the one that means something to me. And I picked it up at a boot sale when I was like 7 or 8 years old. So
But I don't think that's not the first time you've picked up some decent comics from a boot sale, is it?
No, no. And I've had some amazing luck when it comes to what I like to call thrift store finds. You know, I decided to use thrift store because it's a little bit more American, and a lot of my audience is US based. But yeah, these jumble sales, these boot sales, these charity shops, that is where a lot of my collection has come from. And more recently on my channel, I've decided to bring the cameras along for a ride with me when I go on such hunts. But yeah, that's where so much of this has come from.
It's just, honestly, it's so wicked to find. I mean, like, when I first started doing this comic show, it was like, yeah, this is great. Like, we're going to talk about comics and stuff. But the more people I've had on it, you learn so much more about them. It's literally, yeah, it's the killer comic show, but it's not just what a killer comic has come out this week. It's what a killer comic is to anyone that comes on the show. Like, for instance, I think this week, something is killing the children #10 came out. That kind of blew up, right?
Yeah.
But if you're not following that, that's not a killer comic for you. It might just be something like, I don't know, Power Rangers, or it might be Bill and Ted's Bogus Adventure. I think one of them came out this week as well. But a killer comic is what is for you. So your first comic you picked up might be something absolutely different to someone else, but to you, it's a killer comic. And I think that's what the comic scene and the comic community is all about. Like, yeah, there's going to be difference of opinions and different reviews and stuff like that, but a killer comic is a killer comic. I'm definitely promoting this show tonight, aren't I?
No, absolutely. I totally get what you're saying, because at the end of the day, these books, these characters really do mean so much to us as readers. And, you know, we grow up with this stuff, and, you know, it really does influence how we grew up as well. You know,
I don't think it's the same for Dino though. I'm watching on the big TV and you're both even uglier. Is there a way that I can block him? Because I think we need to.
I don't know.
We can put the user in timeout, or we can block him. But Dino, you've just interrupted Luke. I find that very rude. Okay, so carry on, sir.
It's all right. It's all right. We're all friends. No, it is like these characters have helped raise us, and these stories have taught us life lessons that we've gone on to maintain throughout adulthood. So yeah, a killer comic can be anything that's out this week, or anything that you have experienced within your life, even if it was written before your life even began.
And I just think that's the way it is. I mean, how do you think that? I mean, because comics way back. I mean, I was born in '85, so
Good
comics
year.
were. Yeah, it was a good year. It was a very good year. And for that, if you want to find out how good a year it is, make sure you tune in to Straight Outta Crampton, because in the next couple of weeks, he's got a good video coming up. So if you like your comics, I'm plugging you, Ben. If you're still in the chat, I'm trying to do it for you here, mate, because
see what we did there, Ben. See what we did there.
See, we were there for you, Ben. But yeah, no, honestly, that's one thing you can't change, is the comic that came out in the month and day that you were born. So, and for me, like, growing up when I was reading comics, my dad was very much into comics. Like, he was very much into like Iron Man, like the Beano, the Dandy and stuff like that. And that's kind of where I started my comics from. Like, for me, the Beano and Dandy were wicked. I used to love picking them up for, I think it was like 15p down at the local corner shop. I used to love picking it up. I'd spend my pocket money and go and get them.
Always and then like a sweet or a candy bar attached to it.
with the sellotape.
Yeah.
And you try so hard not to rip it off, because you ended up ripping one of the main. You wouldn't you? Oh look, yeah, look, he's noticed. Look, there we go.
Yeah, someone's got to help him out.
And he's got the plug out. Yeah. No, I didn't say 95, Rod. I said 1985, Rod. Do I look that young on here?
It's this new lighting. You know, it makes us look amazing.
It's my Sharpie beard.
Although I'm looking a bit shiny today. Got to sort out this light.
got to get the glare off.
Yeah.
But I mean, way back when, comic books were just filled with adverts. You'd literally have 1 or 2 pages, and then it was just adverts. 1 or 2 pages, then it was like a soap commercial on a page and stuff like that. Going forward, in my eyes, the way that comics have changed now is much more aimed at the reader as a comic fan, instead of trying to promote a product. How would you? I mean, because you're the guy that I would talk to about Bronze and Silver Age comics, so I'm literally throwing this straight out to you, mate.
So, well, while we're on the subject of adverts, like, I love the ads that were within Silver and Bronze Age books. More noticeably the Silver Age, because I think that was the Silver Age was very much a time of innocence. And marketing would greatly take advantage of that. You'd have like the big macho men, look this way within a number of weeks, but never really tell you how many weeks it takes or what you have to do. And all these like random like con gifts, like gag gifts, but they never really worked. A particular favorite of mine is, of course, the Sea Monkeys. The illustrations that they made for those adverts were superb. But and then as time's gone on, those adverts have kind of been lost, and now you open up a modern comic and it might be an advert for a video game or another upcoming comic book title. And I just, part of me is glad that people aren't getting duped out of their money anymore, but the other part of me is missing that nostalgia. I miss those pages that we saw with all those multiple random ads. But yeah, no, as far as comic book goes, the story has always been there. The older books, it was a lot more concise. You had one story per book, or maybe across two books, and then that was it. So you could almost kind of jump on at any point. Nowadays, in the modern world, these stories go on for issue upon issue. They expand for years, and it's a lot harder to jump in now as a new reader than it ever was back in the day.
See, that is my main thing. I think this has come up in quite a few conversations I've had over the last couple of weeks, is that Marvel, like I'm a massive fan of Marvel, but I'm kind of split down the two, because the Marvel franchise, for me, I enjoy the movies because they're more family orientated. You can kind of just pick them up, roll with them, and then jump back in. With DC, it's more adult based, so you kind of have to think about it a lot more, and it's kind of one job done, that's it, that's kind of it. With the comic books as well, it's the same thing. Marvel are dragging out, they seem to be dragging out everything at the moment. I mean, first of all, there was War of the Realms, which was highly anticipated. Everyone was really looking forward to it, and I think after about, I think it was either 8 or 12 issues after it was done, that was at the end of. And then you think that's it, and then they bring out Empire, Road to Empire, Captain America Empire, Captain Marvel Empire. And before you know it, you're reading about 30 or 40 comic books a week just to tie into the main arc of the story. And I haven't even picked up the second issue of Empire yet, because I'm kind of like, if I get into this, then I've got to go back and read Captain Marvel 19, then jump forward to Captain America #1 Empire. And it's kind of like, it's not as it was in the Bronze or Silver Age. You could pick up issue, I don't know, 152 of Iron Man, and I've only read 117, and you're kind of like, well, I know where this story is going, because it's kind of all it's there.
And let's not forget, and maybe Bronze Age isn't correct for this, because I think this is still very much a modern book, because it was set in the 90s. Well, not set in the 90s, but it was released in the 90s. The Infinity Gauntlet saga, that had a vast amount of tie-ins. It was ram-packed full with them. However, you didn't have to read all of the tie-ins to make sense of the story, because the overall story that you were buying was so concise, so well written. Not all these modern books have that same luxury. Take Absolute Carnage, for example. You could read just those 5 books, but unless you were really reading, say, Spider-Man and Venom as well, you weren't getting the full story. And then obviously you had other side characters after that, including Miles Morales, Deadpool, various others. And it's like, did you really need all of that to tell that story? In my opinion, the answer is no, because I didn't read all of them. I just I picked out the few that I was actually following, the ones that I was picking up, and I managed to get what I needed from that. But like I say, these tie-ins have existed for quite a while, and the Infinity Gauntlet saga is one such example. But yeah, it's a way to make money, right? They're always going to do it. The next one that we've got coming in December with Null is bound to have countless tie-ins. Will they be good? Will they all be necessary? Who knows?
Well, it's like at the moment, I think it came out yesterday. It was the Web of Venom Wraith. Yeah. And you haven't had the chance to read that yet, have you?
No, but I did watch Ben Crampton and the Not Quite Mint guys discuss it. I already know quite a bit about that story anyway. I was a fan of the Wraith storyline that they released a few years back during the Annihilation event and everything else. So I always had that speculation of why Noel looks so much like Rafe,
Yeah,
or why
yeah.
Rafe looks like.
Looks like, yeah.
So I've kind of already looked into a lot of it. So yeah, I'm okay with the spoilers for that.
Yeah, no, honestly, I read it. Yeah, I read it yesterday, and I was like, this is a good story arc. This is going to tie in very well, and it seems to make more sense than the 5 or 6 different Empire ones coming in and everything. I mean, Venom's blown up. If you haven't been reading Venom,
Yeah.
I don't know where you've been, because during lockdown, that's kind of what I did. I literally just went back to the start and read like all 27 issues, got up to date with it, absolutely fell in love with it over again, because I think Venom is one of them characters that you kind of love him or hate him, because, like, let's be honest, he's not an Avenger, or is he? He's not an X-Man, or is he? So it's kind of like he's on his own. He's your favorite lovable rogue, but the storyline in the comics is sensational. Like, Donny Cates has absolutely smashed the ball out of the park in every single issue for me, and tying it in with Web of Venom Wraith is, I think he's just had another string to his bow, and it's just gonna. I think we know what to expect from Donny Cates now, and then when he changes the ball like that, you're like, what else are you going to do?
Yeah. No, me and Dino have had many a discussion about Venom and what Donny Cates is doing, and they've humanized him. You know, they've made him a much more rounded character, and I think the best thing that he's what Cates has given us is making Eddie a father, giving him something to fight for, something to care about, and I really hope that they stick with that. One of my previous videos is actually about character resets, and how a lot of people just see Venom as an enemy of Spider-Man, and if another writer came on board, they might just discard Dylan and say, well, that never existed, that never happened, and then re-enter Venom as a villain, and that would be such a shame, because this character growth is so amazing. This is my biggest fear with X-Men at the moment. We know that the X-Men are going to eventually come into the MCU, but when they do, the general public know Magneto as being the villain of the X-Men. Well, at the moment in the comics, he's not the villain. So they're going to have to change that to remold the audience getting ready for the MCU debut. And that's going to be such a shame, because you just lose all of that character growth.
Yeah. And I think that's for me as a Marvel fan, I'm kind of hoping that they step away from doing that, because character growth, as you just said, the one on Venom, the way that they've done it is second to none. It's really good. And like at the end of Web of Venom Wraith, there's an interaction between Dylan and Eddie, and it's kind of like he's a family man now. It's quite endearing to see how he's come from being an absolute lost cause, finding out he's got his son, bringing his son into the whole thing, and then becoming a father at the end of it. And it's really good to see. But then,
do you know what I think works really well as well is, like you say, we were born in '85. Venom is a product of the '80s. We've grown up with Venom, and now we are at that age where we are now having kids and we are fathers. So we can now relate to this character. Back when he was a wild card and all that lot, he was what we needed back then, because we were teenagers and we were wild. Now he's got someone else to care for, and that resonates with us. Venom has now grown with his audience.
And I think that's a great. It is a great way to look at it, because it can, as you just said, we're both parents. Our kids are the first and foremost and everything, and to see that portrayed in a comic is quite endearing, because it's kind of like, this is reality. This is great, and I just hope that Venom doesn't become something of a bore when you just pick up and think, oh, this story's been dragging on too long now. I kind of want to see how Dylan deals with it. I want to see a lot more of Dylan.
Yeah, no, I do too. And again, this is something that me and Dino have been discussing. We talk quite a lot about this subject, just bouncing ideas off of each other to see what works. But the truth is, we don't know. I've put a lot of faith in both Donny Cates and Marvel in general. I love what they've done with the MCU. There's a lot of comic book fans out there who go, "Oh, this is different, that's different," but they've done the best with what they had. And also, if we knew what was going to happen all the way through, it would be very boring. I like the changes that they made. It keeps me on my toes. I love the whole speculation aspect to it. Even though I'm not a speculator, I don't flip books. I don't. That's not the reason why I do it. I like to guess. I like to play. I like that. it's a bit like when you're watching a TV show before the whole craze of binge watching. You know, week by week, you would be in the office making a cup of tea in the kitchen, talking about what was.
Have you been watching me? Have you been watching me?
Is that
I'm
what
doing that today.
time?
Yes, it is. But it's exactly the truth. And I think, like, on the flip side of that, like, horror comics has now become a massive thing. I know you're a horror fan. Like, you've got your cosplay thing. You've got that's where Hydra Collectables kind of came from, wasn't it? Like your cosplay and your building and stuff like that. So, I mean, for you, horror genre must be very enjoyable.
Yeah, I have a lot to thank horror for. Like, it's been my wheelhouse for so long. I'm a massive horror fan, and when I say, like, I dived in and out of comics over the years, you know, I did have a Walking Dead collection. You know, I was picking up Walking Dead from issue 2. I happened to miss out on issue 1, and that was back in like 2003. I think it was 2003, 2004. No one was reading it back then. You know, there was not the show wasn't even a thing. But I was picking up that as a horror themed comic because I loved horror and I love zombies. Big George Romero fan here. Absolutely love those original movies. And yeah, again, going back to thrift store finds, I found my issue 1 of Walking Dead at a car boot sale. And so I was flicking through the box, saw it there, and I just looked up at the bloke and went, "How much for the whole box?" And
I remember you telling me this. I remember you telling me this.
Next to me, and the guy was like, "Oh, I don't know, 25 quid." I was like, "I'll give you 20 for it." And he was like, "Yeah, no worries." I paid him his money, and off I went. Literally got to the car, pulled out that one book, handed it to my wife, and just threw the rest into the boot and went, "That's the one we need."
that is golden. That's wicked. Like, could you imagine? And have you still got that number 1 now?
No. So again, it took me a while to decide what I was going to do with that. So, you know, the show of Walking Dead came out and all the popularity went up, and I saw these books climbing and climbing. And at the time, I sat there saying to myself, I'm not going to sell these. You know, I'm going to keep hold of these. I've done a lot of work and stuff, and hung out with the artist Charlie Adlard, and I've been around conventions and stuff in full zombie gear for events and everything else. And I never thought that I would sell them. And then I ran into a little bit of money trouble, and I needed some money, and I saw that was the way to do it. You know, I saw that was my get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to make the decision all or nothing, because I wasn't just going to get rid of the major keys and be left with nothing at all. So I decided I was going to sell them, and I did. And I used part of the money for what I needed to financially, and the rest of it, I bought various comic keys that you now see here. I reinvested that money into something else. And that issue 1 actually paid for my giant size X-Men one, which I now have as a grade 8.0 up on the shelf.
That's a no-brainer. That isn't. And do you know what? We spoke about this on Sunday on Comico Dino's show on Sunday. If you haven't seen it already, make sure you check it out. There's just 6 guys being geeks, and it's a perfect way to top off your weekend. So check it out on Comico Dino's page. But it was wicked. And, like, I love the fact that you just literally, there's grails out there that you want, but you're not going to go out and spend stupid amount of money on it, because there's going to be a time and a point where you're actually, me myself, there's a grail out there. I think if you don't know by now, Batman Adventures number 12 is my holy grail, the first appearance of Harley Quinn. I'm a massive Harley Quinn fan, so I do want that comic, and I still have to pinch myself in absolute disgust. I turned it down in Las Vegas about 6 years ago, and it was the newsstand edition, and I was like, £400. Like, what? No, I haven't got that. Like, unless I win big on the casino, I'm not going to get it. But having spoken to you on the Sunday, it's kind of set my mind in motion that if I do want that comic, I've probably got something here that one day I'm going to sell, and I'm going to buy that one that I want, because at the moment I haven't got £2,500 sitting around just for me to technically waste on a showpiece that's going to sit on a wall. I'm a family man, and that's the last thing my wife's going to let me do. But yeah, it is right.
A lot of these books, you know, these ones that hold their value, these key books that are keys because time has proven them to be keys. You know, people refer to them a lot as blue chip comics. You know, the way to look at that is that is your investment. You know, some people might put money in the bank, some people might stack gold or silver. We as geeks stack comic books. You know, we hold on to these, and if at any time you need that money, that book is there. And because it's been proven to be worth money, you know, for the last 10, 20 years, if not longer, then you know it's always going to hold that value. I mean, that Walking Dead book was, you know, about £1,000. I think I sold it for 900. I then managed to buy the giant size X-Men for £800 and then sent it off to CGC. So in total, it probably cost me that 900 in total. But the money was never in my bank. Like the money literally came into the bank and then jumped straight back out again as I purchased the next book. It was already there waiting for me. I phoned up my local store and said, "Yeah, I'm having it." And off it went straight away. I didn't even take the book home. I got him to send it straight off to CGC, and I never held it in my hands until it came back. You know, that's the best way to treat this hobby. You know, let the hobby pay for itself.
Yeah, no, and I think as long as it doesn't become anything other than that, I think it should just always be a hobby. I mean, unless you're out there to make money, to flip the comics. I mean, because let's be honest, there's stupid people out there that are buying thousands in bulk, flipping them for stupid prices, and then that's their way of funding their hobby. I think the fact that we stay natural, we afford what we can, we never bust the gut to get what we've got to get. We will only get it when we've got the funds available. And I think your method, I was just about to get onto this. So
there's been times when I've
this is what I was leading on to. So what is that one that we are talking about now? I think you know, but
yeah, well, there's been quite a few. There has been quite a few. Luckily for me, you know, this has never been a problem like between my wife and I.
I think Ben's having the same thing. This is the speech we all have to give our partners, wives and husbands. Just don't say anything, Ben.
I've got a very supportive wife. You know, my wife literally on her birthday, right? We went out for her birthday and we're sitting there having a meal, and you know, she goes off to the bathroom or whatever. I look at my phone and there is an Amazing Spider-Man issue 14, first appearance of Green Goblin, for £500, and I'm like, oh, I need that book. £500, you know, it's a bargain for what it was. And looking at it, it looked like it was going to be maybe a grade 4, maybe a grade 5. So I was like, that is worth that price. You know, if you were going to get that, you know, CGC and everything else, that book's well over a grand and a half. You know what I mean? So that is well worth the price. She comes back and she goes, "You're right there," because I'm looking all a bit antsy, and I'm like, "Yeah, there's a book here. I really want to buy it." And she literally looks at me and goes, "Do you have the 500? I went, "No." She goes, "Can you get the 500? I said, "Yes, but I don't know how quick or when." She went, "Just buy it." So she's done that multiple times. You know, right now, yeah, I'm in a little bit of comic book debt at the moment, but I've got a plan. I know what I'm getting rid of to pay for it. The stuff is up for sale, and you know, the hobby pays for itself. And like what you said before, you know, my background with special effects, I'm in that lucky situation where I can make money out of nothing. You know, I pick up a block of clay, I sculpt it, I make something, I mold it, and then ship it out on eBay or Etsy or something like that. I can literally make money out of nothing. So it's just it's a case of knowing what's going to sell and hoping I can make it in time to sell it and get those profits coming in. Obviously, you don't want to do anything copyrighted or anything else. It has to be your own design. But as we approach Halloween, it's perfect for me. You know, stay tuned for my channel because there's going to be some corpse building.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to your Halloween. I mean, I think it's going to be big. I think you've definitely got, as I mentioned earlier, your the way that you're doing things on your channel now, your thumbnails, the time you're putting in is, Luke, I've got to say, it's amazing. The time and effort you're putting in, it clearly shows in everything you're doing, mate. And it's so enjoyable to talk to you like on a daily basis to find out what you've got coming out now. I look forward to your Instagram stories, your YouTube videos. The best YouTube video for me, most recently, is that thrift store find of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like, I love the Turtles. I'm a massive fan of it. And when I see that, I think I watched the video twice just to it was just the fact that you're in the car. Yeah, I'm going to go. And then when you open up the boot and you're like, look at this, I'm like, he's only going to got it.
Yeah.
I mean, because I had that when I was a kid. So to just see it again, I kind of relived my childhood through your find.
It's so cool, like when you find stuff like that, because like so much of the stuff that I do pick up tends to be stuff that I'm not really interested in. You know, I pick up like multiple bags of stuff, and in that there might be 1 or 2 items that I want for myself, and then I either redonate the rest or I sell it to pay for what I really wanted.
Yeah.
And yeah, I take the gamble. You know, I'm in touch with these people. They know what I'm after. They know what I'm interested in, and they put the stuff aside for me. So the fact that they put it aside for me, I don't even barter. I don't argue. I go in, I pay them what they want for it, and I take it away without even looking. So when I'm literally looking through the bags at the end,
it's the first time.
That's the first time I'm seeing it. And it's so exciting when it's something from your childhood. You know, you go in and you say to someone, I like turtles. Well, turtles have been out for like our entire age, you know, 30 odd years. And there's been different iterations of them over that time. So you don't know if you're going to get a modern figure or if you're going to get one of these classic vintage ones. And it's the luck of the draw. And lucky for me, you know, I was able to purchase the missing pieces that I needed to complete that Turtles wagon. So the bits that I mentioned in the video that I was missing, I now have, and that is a complete set. Yeah, I love it. You know, I'm a massive Turtles fan, and it now means I've got 2, because I've got my original from childhood, which again I showed briefly in the video, and now I've got this more complete one as a collector. So that means my little boy can play with the older one from childhood, and I've got a nice one for display.
Best of both worlds. See, exactly. I'm the same. I've got my comics behind me, but then I've also got it's becoming huge. Like one of my mates is in here, the Poptimus UK. I've got a pop collection, but the Poptimus UK has got an exceedingly bigger pop collection. But I kind of like, some of them are out the box, some of them I let my kids play with and stuff like that. But there's some of them I'm like, I don't want you touching it. I think it's the only child syndrome in me. I'm the only child. I've got 3 boys. They're boisterous. They're growing up. They want to play with anything. Well, it's mine. I'm like, please don't touch that. But then I'm kind of thinking, yeah, see?
All the dinosaurs that I have up here, these are mine, right? And there's a couple of figures up there that are mine from childhood, and some of them are more recent. They're more modern. However, I buy 2 of them. When it's something that I know that not only do I like, but I think my son or my daughter will like, I buy, if I can afford to, I buy 2 of them. And then that way they get them. Now, I don't give it to them right away because I don't want them to come off being spoiled or anything like that. But birthdays, Christmas, whatever, it's been put away. And then they get one that they play with themselves. And the first thing they do when they open it is, I've got the same as Daddy. And they're all excited. You know, they have their turtle figures. I have mine. They have their dinosaurs. I have mine. They don't have any Gremlins yet because I'm a big Gremlins fan and they're all mine. I'm keeping them.
Do you remember? Do you remember the Boglins? Was it the Boglin where you had to put your hand in?
Yeah.
I see one of them.
The problem with that stuff is they don't last. That sort of like rubber that they were made of just deteriorates over time. So you know they're like 20 odd years old now.
Yeah.
If you do find one, you're very lucky. Do you know what I mean?
So I was out shopping and I found the 75 years of Marvel book covers. And I was I'd been out with a family, I was just walking down the street past the charity shop. And since you've started doing your thrift store finds, every charity shop I walk past now, I'm like, I'm going to go and have a look. I'm going to see if I can trump him. I'm going to see if I can do it.
You have to, right? You have to. You never know, right? You can walk in and you just look through their normal book section and you never know, right? I picked up a regular like kids Christmas annual book, you know, like they do like Star Wars ones, Marvel ones, etc.
Yeah.
So this was an X-Men one, right? And I just grabbed it off the shelf. I saw a book that I wanted, and it was 2 books for £1. So I was like, let me just grab something else. Oh, that's Marvel. I'll take it. Maybe the kids will like it. Paid for it. When I got home, flipped through the pages. It's only been signed. You never guess who it was signed by.
Who?
Jim Lee.
You see? Oh my God.
Yeah. I don't know yet if it's authentic because I haven't sent it off to that, but I've had other people look at it, had other friends look at it. They think it's genuine, and it's just, you know, within the X-Men book, little Jim Lee signature in there.
You see what I mean? Like, it's just, I think again, it goes back to like being a geek and everything like that. A few years ago, if you were seen in a charity shop, it was like, what, you got no money, you got to go and shop in a charity shop. Like, no one thought about you was actually going in there looking for a bargain. And it only kind of hit me probably about 10 years ago when my dad went into a charity shop and came out with a £600 Yves Saint Laurent suit, which cost him about 30 quid.
Yeah.
And from then I was like,
here's a little tip. Maybe I'll regret telling you this, especially because we're live on air.
Disclaimer.
Go to the charity shops in the more well-off areas, because the stuff that they're donating is a lot more pricey. You know, it's a lot more not more nice stuff. So, you know, if you're willing to travel and you shop around and go to these places, go to those, you know, higher end markets, you know, those higher end residential areas, because there will be better stuff in those charities.
I mean, because I was like, normally I'd pass it, and I was with my little boys, and they was like, my little boy, he's so into Hulk smash. It's not even Incredible Hulk, it's Hulk smash. That's what it is. And he was like, Hulk smash. And I'm like, Jacob, what are you talking about? And then I walked back and I was like, I can't pass this up. I can't pass this up. So I went in and I was literally said to the lady, how much is this? And she was like, I honestly don't know. Can you get it out of the window? So I got it. And she went, how much? I said, it's $3.99. She was like, yep, let's call it $3.50. And I was like, okay. And I ended up giving her £4. And I look on the back and it's a £30 book.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was awesome. And I was like, why wouldn't you do this more? Why? Like, so there's definitely something out there. And I mean, I've been looking through it, and it's just amazing to see how the comics have changed from way back when to where they are now. I mean, 75 years, that's way before I was born. Like, that's kind of like, well, way before we were born. Yeah. And it's kind of like, and just to be able to see and flick through a book and see how the different colors were used, how the storytelling was used, how the words were used. I mean, I think if you look back at one of the old Stan Lee comics, one of the old Iron Man comics, and Spider-Man, it's kind of like the speech bubbles, like the way they're putting words together, they're kind of cutting them in half. And instead of saying we can't, they're saying, yeah, we ain't, and stuff like that. And it's like way back then. And you're looking at it thinking, they was even talking broken English before we even knew what it was.
Well, this is the other thing as well. Like those older comics, you know, they taught a lot of young kids how to read. You know, the way that they separated the letters, or the way they put the words together, or the character names, you know, that really helped kids learn phonetically how to spell out these words and how to read books. It certainly helped me. You know, I was never really into school. You know, now I'm married to a teacher, but I was never into school myself. You know, I've always said that I feel like I was somewhat failed by the school system, but I've done all right. I'm not going to complain too much. But comics were a large part of me learning how to read. Yeah, you know, it meant a lot to me.
Yeah, and I think it still means, it clearly still means a lot to all of us now. And I think going back to what we was talking about, horror comics and everything like that, do you think, so you're a massive horror comic fan, can you see how it's changed from way back when to where it is now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, these horror comics that we had back in the day, especially from like EC Comics, you know, this is why the Comics Code existed. And then as time's gone on, the world has changed like dramatically, and so much has come into play. And now we kind of, the code doesn't really exist anymore. You know, it's almost like it's just there because it's tradition. It's not. We've come so far from those boundaries that were put in place. Nowadays, you know, and horror is making such a big comeback. You know, not just in the independents. Some of these independents are absolutely nailing it. Like they are so good. You know, like we mentioned, Something Is Killing the Children earlier. You know, there's so many great independent horrors out there, but at the same time, Marvel's got its own stuff. You know, we know that they're reintroducing Blade. We know we're going to get the new Doctor Strange movie, which is a lot more supernatural based. So with supernatural elements from Doctor Strange, vampire, Blade, sure enough, we're going to get all those other universal based monsters, which we've seen in Marvel comics for years, making their way into the movies again.
Do you think there's too much? I mean, I had this conversation with Philip Kennedy Johnson the other week that we spoke about how he's done the Galactus story in Marvel Zombies Resurrection, but it's kind of the way that it's been done because of the COVID and the pandemic and stuff like that is fallen in situ with the Thor story. Now, and it's also now going to fall in with the fact that the way that tails on his new story that he's got coming out is also going to happen on that as well. Do you think with the likes of Deceased and Marvel Zombies, they're overloading it a bit too much?
Yes and no. Yes and no. The thing is horror is a great subject matter, like, because it invokes so many different emotions, and you can find great strength and weakness within horror. So as a reader, you know, that's always going to be after. Now, yes, you can oversaturate the market. You know, when Walking Dead came out, like we discussed before, zombies were everywhere. You know, and I've always made the joke that I loved zombies before they were cool. You know, before they were mainstream. And you know, stuff like this has kind of taken me back from it. I kind of go, okay, I'm done with zombies now. I know what I like. I know what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
But it's been played. It's been done. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm never gonna stop liking that stuff. But yeah, you can certainly look at it and go, okay, there's a lot of it out there. Fortunately for us, these are only certain titles that these companies release. So yeah, okay, they've got their zombie book over at Marvel, and yeah, okay, they've got their zombie book over at DC. But look at all the other books they're releasing that same day, that same week.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot out there, but does it really matter? If you're into it, pick it up. You know, there's obviously a market for it. So it's a bit unfortunate that certain books have fallen during this time. You know, like I was reading The Resistance, and I was reading Pandemica, and I was reading like all these books where you look at it and you go, oh my God, given the circumstances of what's going on in the world now, like, how did that happen? How did they get released at this time? It's very coincidental. But yeah, it just happens. Like, you just got to go with the flow.
Because it's like Year Zero from AWA Upshot. That's kind of like, that's very close to the bone of what's going on now. And I was speaking to I actually think I was speaking to one of the guys in work, and I said, the way that it's going now, like he's not into comics at all. So I'll sit down, and when he's on his lunch, I'll be like, I'm just going to sit down and bore you with comics, mate, because he's a mate out of work and in work, and I'll talk to him about it. But I was like, do you think that they've timed the release into this just so it becomes such a wanted book that is people that are part of that going, oh, we're going through COVID, this comic came out, this is going to be worth money in years to come because it's actually retelling what we went through and stuff like that in a comic book form? Do you think, like, in a roundabout way, the publishers know what they're doing and they're kind of planning when they release these to tie in with certain world events?
I don't think so, because you know these things take months, you know, to make. You know, there's always going to be people out there who have written something similar to real life events, or even just a regular movie. You know, someone might release a movie, someone else is sitting at home going, "Oh my God, I'm writing the script that's very similar to that." You know, there's always going to be those stories out there. For anyone to be holding something back, I think that's too great a risk. You know, if you've got something, you release it, and if the wave catches it, then they roll with it, and they've made a lot more money. What you have to remember as well is a lot of these books were low print runs, which means that as creators and as publishers, they're not getting any of that money. All of those books are spiking in the secondary market, where these creators don't see any of that.
Don't see any,
So yeah, I don't think that anyone's holding anything back specifically for world events.
Interesting if it was, though, wouldn't it?
It would be. It'd be a good conspiracy, but I don't think so.
I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'll sit here and chat comics conspiracies all day long. But like I wasn't a massive horror comic genre fan until I think it was Joe Hill, Basket Full of Heads came out, and that, for me so far, that's probably one of my favourite horror comics, other than Something Is Killing the Children, which is, if you haven't read issue 10 yet, it is just,
I haven't.
I literally read it and was like, wow. And I spoke to John's Comics with Kids today, and he was like, why is this issue blowing up? Because I put on my Instagram story, I just put the cover and said, "If you know, you know." And he was like, why is this blowing up? I'm hearing people talk about it.
Respect for you doing that, because
Yeah.
that's fine. Like I'm more than happy with people posting something like that.
Mhm.
I hate it when people put the spoilers and I haven't read it yet, especially when
Yeah.
my order hasn't come. But no, like all that you've done there is you've made me want to read it. So that's fine in my book. I haven't read it yet, so I can't say anything. But I'm loving that series so far.
Oh, it is just. It is insane. And again, Rod the Reekin says, I wasn't into horror until I read Road of Bones by IDW. And again, IDW, independent comics, I've had this conversation time and time again. What's his Tommy? Comic Dino, wow, Brexit, I totally forgot about that. Is it still going on? I didn't even know. But yeah, like horror comics as a genre, now that it's become into the forefront with DC Black Label, with the likes of Joe Hill, who is obviously Stephen King's son, writing the likes of Daphne Bryan, we've got Plunge, we've got Basket Full of Heads. It's more enjoyable than I thought it was, because I read Lock and Key when it came out years ago and didn't really like it. Then I thought, oh, okay, with the horror genre, me getting into it, I'll watch it on Netflix. Didn't like it on Netflix at all. Turned it off after the second episode. And then I read Lock and Key again, being into horror comics in the genre, and there was things in it that I didn't even see the first time round.
Yeah.
And it's a great comic. It really is. And I think the way that they've done it in the show hasn't done it justice.
Yeah, I still haven't watched the show, so I can't give my input on that. But as far as the comic goes, yeah, great comic. The thing is, with a lot of these books, it's the same for anything. Same as whether it be a book, a comic book, or a TV show. It's about when you read it. It's about your mindset, about your mood, also about your age. You know, there was books that I read as a kid where I didn't really take what the story was. And then now as an adult, I've reread them and I'm like, oh my God, this is hitting me on a totally different level. You know, you can enjoy it one way as a kid, and on another way you can see it completely differently. A great example of that is Tom and Jerry, UK cartoon, UK cartoon, where basically, you know, as a kid you're rooting for the mouse, but as an adult you're rooting for the cat.
Yeah, well, that's the truth, isn't it? You're like, come on, you got to get it, and then you're like, well, actually, on the flip side, I'm going to actually root for the mouse. But I mean, so going forward and stuff, do you see comics ever getting back? I mean, what was your favorite age? Was it the bronze or the silver?
So there's two elements here, right? So I love them both equally, you know, and I know that's a bit of a cop-out answer, but there was an innocence about the Silver Age. There was something new and exciting, and these heroes were here to save us, and it was all, you know, the Silver Age is very much the birth of science, you know, the superheroes from science. These weren't like bestowed godlike powers or anything like that. They weren't superhuman like from any other format other than, you know, experiments that went wrong or this, that, and the other. You know, radioactive spider, gamma radiation, Fantastic Four up in space. You know, all this stuff was very early sci-fi. And there was this wonderful innocence about that, as, you know, us as the audience, as mankind, was, you know, working out and breaking out into this new era of time. And then obviously you've got the Bronze Age, which is a much darker time. You know, that's where the gritty stories come from. You know, that's where your Batmans and your Watchmen and everything else, Conan the Barbarian, you know, where we got the Punisher, where we got Wolverine, you know, all these dark, gritty characters came from the Bronze Age era. And so, yeah, okay, you can look at the innocence of the Silver Age and you can look at the darkness of the Bronze, and they are two very contrasting sides of the same coin. But that's why I love them so much, because those heroes traveled with these other characters, and now we've got a nice mix. You know, we've got Captain America, we've got Superman, and they're living in a world with now this darker Batman or this Conan the Barbarian. Like we're seeing these characters interact in a way that we never did before. So yeah, I just love that era of comics, and it's really hard to work out where the Bronze Age truly ends. Because it really has just like bled into the modern age, because modern age comics are defined from, I think, 1975 to present. But you know, so much of those 1975 books, you know, take Giant Size X-Men 1 for example.
Yeah.
You would still kind of class that as a Bronze Age book, even though it's technically a modern.
Yeah.
It's hard to see that divide. It's a lot more liquid than people make out, I think.
You've literally just hit it. My next question was going to be, where do you think the Bronze Age and Modern Age? Have you got that script? Did you read that script that I sent you? Or have you?
Yeah. You sent it over, right? I just summarized it beforehand.
But yeah, it is. I think it's. I definitely. It's an exciting time being a comic book reader, because I think when everyone was in lockdown and stuff like that, there weren't much to do other than spend time with the family, read comics, read your back issues, sort your house out. Once you've done that, you're like, right, that's day one done. What am I going to do now?
Well, this is the thing. For me, lockdown, nothing changed.
Nothing changed. You are like
Dad, and I was still at home, and I collect Silver and Bronze Age books, and eBay was still active. Nothing changed for me.
See, because I think this was one of the questions. I think we both asked it to Ryan Brown, was like, being an artist or being a writer, etc., has anything changed for you? And he was like, no, nothing has changed. Like nothing at all. I literally sit in these four walls and I draw or I write and I'll do this. And Philip Kennedy Johnson said the same thing. He said, nothing changed. Like the fact that the only thing was that I weren't able to go out and socialize. But when I'm writing a book, I didn't really do that anyway. So the adjustments that we've had to make is obviously 10 times more than anyone else has had to make. And I just literally, so obviously with DC announcing that all these people are getting redundant and stuff like that, it's going to go digital. It could go digital. I really hope it doesn't, because I enjoy going out on a Wednesday, going to my new comic book shop, spending time with the guys there, talking about comics and holding a comic. Like there's nothing better than holding a comic book.
Yeah.
I mean, you can hold an iPad, you can hold a Kindle and everything like that and read a comic, but you don't get the same feeling as you would do. Now, do you get that feeling, the same feeling reading a modern comic than you do with a bronze or silver?
No.
I knew you wouldn't.
So
why do you think that is?
There's a lot of reasons. Obviously the paper quality is very different, you know, and you open up the book and you can feel it. Like there's a weight difference.
Yeah.
And then obviously you've got, you know, the history of the book. You know, a lot of these Bronze Age books, they're not like perfect mint condition. You know, something that everyone's chasing at the moment is these 9.8s, and they're slabbing them and they're keeping their modern books all high and everything else. I don't like that. I like a book that's been loved. I like a book that's got a bit of history behind it, and I like being delicate with a book as I open up the pages. But the biggest difference for me is the smell. Like a modern book, you open it up, you take it out, and in all honesty, it's like looking at a computer screen. Like it's all bright and glossy. It's all. I
see what you mean. Look at that. That's not even white.
Look at the colorization. Look at the colors in that book. You know, it's you compare that to a modern book. A modern book looks very manufactured. Very. I mean, of course, they're all manufactured, but that looks more like artwork.
It does. I mean, look at that.
Like, yeah, there's something about it. There's something very, very different.
It's even the covers. Even the covers. I'm just going to drop this in here now and say this is
a cool cover.
This is Iron Man 142. It's the first appearance of the MK spacesuit. But this was one of the first comics I ever received, and it's such. I mean, look at the artwork on that now. It is so different to what we get now. I'm totally with you. I totally get that. I'm a modern age comic reader. I love my comics, but I enjoy reading old issues and reading these again because I've been clearing out my loft. I've enjoyed reading the old comics than I have some of the new ones. And I totally 100% agree with you where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's like I say, like I don't mean to put any modern artists down or anything like that, because it's phenomenal. Like there is just something different. And again, I think a lot of it comes down to the paper quality, the inks that were used, everything else. When I say about like the smell of a book, you're not just talking about aged paper. You're talking about all the materials that they used to initially make it as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, like these, I feel like long term, these modern books, you know, the paper quality is a lot worse than everything else.
Yeah.
In another 20, 50, 100 years time, some of these modern books are going to look just as bad, but these older books are probably still going to live up to where they are, because they were better. They were made better. They were made. I'm not saying they were made to last, because that was never their intention. It's just like the paper stock and everything that they did use was much more grand, much better.
Yeah.
But then this is the other thing that concerns me. You know, all these people have their 9.8s and they're in slabs, but what happens when they get sun bleached and damaged? And it's no longer a 9.8 when it's in there if you've got it on a shelf by an open window.
See, this here, I've got my Harley Quinn 9.8 here, right? And I'll tell you what, this if my wife weren't sleeping next to me, she would be. I'll tell you that now. And she is not near a window. She is literally. I'm really delicate about that, but I would be more delicate about if this came back as a 4.0. I would probably take more care of this than I would do with that, because this has got history. Do you know what I mean? This has got history. It's an amazing comic for me. Whereas that is, the artwork is digital. It's more formulated, and as Dee Piercy said, in the old school comics, accessible. The artwork was more accessible. You looked more into it. It was more intriguing. But to tie up this fan, I've really enjoyed this, and I hope everyone has in the chat. Honestly, please make sure you check out Hydra Collectables over on Instagram. He's absolutely making a smashing. Over on YouTube, there's something for everyone. If you like your comics, if you like your toys, if you like your cosplay, if you like your fantastic interviews, give him a check out, because if you don't, I'm going to harass you on Instagram, because he's one of the good guys and there's not many of them out there. I think there's about 5 or 6 of them. Well, there's only 5 people in the chat. So there's 5 of them in the chat, plus us 2. But just give him a look. He deserves all the credit he's getting at the moment. He's a fantastic guy. And to tie it up, what is your killer comic from a Bronze Age, killer comic from a Silver Age, and your killer comic from a Modern Age? I'm putting you on the spot now, Luke.
What a spot!
You told me you only had an hour, so I'm giving you 2 minutes.
Okay, so
15 seconds.
modern book. You know, I'm going straight in there with Giant Size X-Men. Like I said, you know, it's a modern book right on that cusp of the modern age, and I'm going to go with that. There's no better book. Probably the highest ranking book in my collection. You know, not necessarily my favorite book, but certainly the one probably worth the most money in my collection. Then I'm going to go for Bronze Age. I'm going to go Conan the Barbarian. Again, I'm going back. You know, these books that I'm picking, they're literally on the cusp of the ages. Conan the Barbarian came out, I want to say 1970, and that was kind of the first book, you know, launching into the Bronze Age. And he was, you know, this raw, barbaric, you know, character, very dark, you know, very, very brutal. So yeah, I'm going to go for Giant Size X-Men for modern, Conan for bronze. Silver Age, I'm going to put a spin on it, because I know everyone's going to think I'm going to pick Spider-Man. Everyone thinks I'm going to pick...
I thought I was like, he's going to pick Spider-Man. I even got my glass because I thought you would pick Spider-Man.
No, I'm going to throw a wrench in the works. I'm going to say Fantastic Four. And the reason I'm going to say this, right, I am a massive Spider-Man fan. Don't get me wrong. I love Spider-Man. But... and this is, I was actually watching YouTube and saw, Instagram, and I saw someone talking about this. Can't remember who it was. So if I remember, I will definitely give them credit. It was mentioned that when Stan Lee was about to quit and he was going to leave comics and not do anything, you know, his lovely wife said to him, just go back, do one more, but do what you want to do. And, you know, this guy who I was watching on Instagram who said about this, he said he didn't go and create the Incredible Hulk. He didn't go and create Spider-Man. What he created was the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four was what Stan Lee wanted to create. It's what he had in his heart, you know, this family-orientated, amazing piece. And so, yeah, I feel like that was correct. I feel like this guy who I watched on Instagram really did know the correct thing there. You know, Stan Lee wanted to create that family unit, and that's what he That's what created Marvel. You know, it's the first Marvel family. Then a few years later, he made Spider-Man, and we all know that he had a big love for that character too. But I do think Fantastic Four is probably the killer comic of the Silver Age.
And I'll tell you what, that there is no better way to end this show than with you doing that, because I think Stan Lee, fantastic guy. You've literally, I don't really know what else to say, mate. I think you've kind of just hit the nail on the head. He created the kind of Marvel world that it is now, and I think a lot of artists, publicists, writers out there have a lot to answer for with Stan Lee. I think he created this world that we kind of live in now with comics, and it's a fantastic one that we live in. I am just literally trying to work out what one do I press to get you on the main screen. I can't work it out. I just wanted to give you like a minute just to shout about your channel, but I don't know how I'm doing it. So I'm just gonna let you shout about your channel, Luke. Tell everyone what you're doing, what your show is about, and then we will end it on such a fantastic high note. And thank you for being such an amazing guest.
No, thank you for having me. So, yeah, Hydra Collectables, where we let our geek flag fly. We do everything. You know, we are about all things collectible, all things geeky. You know, we do comic books, which I absolutely love. We do toys. We do action figures and statues. We do cosplay and special effects. With Halloween just around the corner, I'm going to really like give a push to the horror stuff, which I hope people will enjoy. But yeah, I do Comics with Friends, which is an open invitation platform, much like this, where I can have somebody onto my show and we can discuss any number of things. You know, if there's anything that takes your fancy out of that list, we will talk about it. It doesn't matter what you collect, what you're into, we are here for you.
That is great. And you know what I'm liking in the chat is that everyone's talking, there's people subbing to one another, and that's kind of what I'm trying to achieve in the UK, is that we build a community. You might not like what you do, you might like what we do, you might not like it, but there's going to be something out there for everyone. I think there's about 15 or 20 of us that are literally doing what we've got to do. We're a solid group, and I think it's just a great community to be in, and to be in a community with you, mate. I've got to say, it's absolutely fantastic. I enjoy talking to you. I enjoy seeing your videos on Instagram and YouTube, and it is absolute pleasure to have you on my little the Killer Comic Show. It's been a long time coming, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, mate. I hope you all have in the chat. Make sure you give Hydra Collectables a sub. Make sure you check them out on YouTube and Instagram, and if you do feel like doing it, check out me as well. There's not much special about me. I'm just a geek that likes reading comics and gives reviews now and again. But it's been fantastic, guys. I really hope you have all enjoyed watching. And as always, if I don't see you through the geek, I've even got my own tagline wrong. If the grey man was here now, he would absolutely slate me. But as it goes, I think I'm going to have to ring up Keith Lemon about this, because it's kind of like what he says. If I don't see you for a week, I'll see you through the geek guy window. Cheers, guys.
Catch you later.